What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today Chad Reuter dropped a 3-round post Super Bowl mock draft, so we're here to review it. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. We are on the best growth in the history of the show, so I have you to thank for that. That is awesome, and I hope it just continues. This is going to be a great draft season. We're, of course, going to be going right into the next draft season as soon as this one ends, and I actually have some really cool content post-draft that will be able to, actually shift things from just like jumping into the next draft class to also being able to reflect and be able to analyze this draft class even more. And I think that's going to be a really good pivot for the show. But below my face is my board. It is continuously being updated. It is a truly transparent board. Not every single player that's going in the top 32 is going to be the top 32 players. So I ask for a little bit of patience, and I do like to describe exactly what I mean when I end up describing why I love these players, and that's either both in videos as well as on X with all 22 clips that I post there. So go check that out through the link tree and go use that underdog code if you want to support the show. Anyways, let's get on into the video. I ended up yapping way too long, and I ended up deciding to cut it off so you guys get to end up getting some real analysis here, because we got 3 full rounds. And unlike my mock draft videos where I actually make the picks and tell you the logic, this is one video, so don't worry about it. Let's get into it. Let's have a great time. We ended up just reviewing Cynthia Freeland's, and we didn't even get to Lance Zierlein's, but it is what it is. Obviously, a lot of their mock drafts were pretty insane. Hello. I mean, this is the first time I'm opening this site. Oh my God. Can we at least like get something down straight for once? Thank you. So, let's get into this. Let's have a great time. Starting out with the number 1 overall selection. We got the Tennessee Titans going Cam Ward. And this is a live reaction as well. I do think that, again, Borgonzi's comment of generational talent, we'll see whether it's smokescreen or whether they're actually going QB. With them trying to potentially move out of this spot as well, I do think that they actually are going to be leaning more towards moving out and then selecting the best player available after acquiring more draft capital, because Borgonzi, he is now the new GM. He's going to have a lot more fun to play with rather than going after a QB that a lot of people don't agree is a true number 1 overall pick. At number 2, we have the Cleveland Browns going Travis Hunter and passing on a quarterback, going best player available. I do think that it's more likely to go Abdul Carter than Travis Hunter, but it is what it is. Obviously, there's the news with Myles Garrett. If you guys did see that there was something a little bit different on your screen, it's because I like to go into the code of the website to be able to knock out a bunch of the stuff that kind of fogs our vision. Hello. And so, hopefully that makes it a better experience for you guys. Which will end up, of course, having to run into that issue each time I refresh the page for a new round, but I prefer for the top 32, at least we get a little more of an expansive view. Giants go Shedeur Sanders at number 3. Makes sense. I mean, it would be intriguing to see what happens if the quarterbacks go 1 and 2. It would also be it would be cool to see what happens if the quarterbacks do fall, but Giants going after a quarterback makes a lot of sense. Self-preservation move. Not a great free agency market for QB. Ends up usually leading towards the draft for guys who want to keep their job. Leaving Abdul Carter, slipping to number 4 to the Patriots. You guys know Abdul Carter is like a right around 10 or 11 on my board if you're looking at a holistic edge view. But I think if you're taking a player up at the top of the draft, you're going to put them in the role that fits them best. I think that's fair to say. And so I ended up putting him as the designated pass rusher role that he is, which is the number 2 player in the class, which, again, I've been saying that, but people, again, you can't really describe what you're saying too often because people don't like to hear the fact that, Abdul not a great run defender, and so might be a little bit lower unless you're actually accepting the fact that, you're going to be using him for his strengths, not necessarily for every aspect of his game, but you're going best player available there at number 4. Jaguars go Will Johnson. I'm super happy with this move. I do think it will be Tetro McMillan with the new offensive, focus of the coach. So Tetro McMillan is my guy pretty much that I'm locking at 5 for the time being. But Will Johnson, you guys see where he's at my board. I'm perfectly happy. At number 6, the Vegas Raiders go Ashton Genty. This is not some ludicrous idea. It is possible. Bijan Robinson went at 8. Jahmyr Gibbs almost went at 6 as well. Ended up going at 12. And, you'll see the war room for the Lions. They're erupting at the fact that he slipped to 12. So, it is what it is. But, this is going to be a top-end focus of the whole entire offense kind of guy. And based on what we saw with Saquon, if you can be able to develop a true offense around that running game, it might end up seeming like it would be worth spending that number 6 overall pick. At number 7, the Jets go Mason Graham. Very, very, very valuable. Very good. Nothing to complain about. Panthers going Walter Nolan at 8 is going to be like the first curveball. And I know Chad, the first time I ever really, I think I ever did a mock the mock on Chad's mocks. The Panthers picks were the ones that made me want to rip my hair out. So it's certainly interesting. And yeah, I mean, this is not one that I'm going to fully support. Walter Nolan jumped noticeably up my board. And, he is a top 32 player for me. Is he number 30? He might be number 33. Where's he at? He's number 34 on my board right now. Really good player. I just ended up falling in love with some other guys, as you can see, probably at number 12 overall on my board. We found another guy who I like, very similar to Andrew Phillips in terms of potential versus consensus. But Walter Nolan's a great player. If he does end up going super high, I obviously would be urging to go after the edge rushing position, but there's 3 rounds here. Let's see if this is going to end up panning out. Walter Nolan has a ton of potential. If all the players hit their ceiling, I think Walter Nolan would be worth a number 8 overall pick. Besides that, I do have my concerns. You guys know how much I support this. Tyler Warren at number 9 to the Saints. Even with, I would prefer to go after Tetairoa McMillan at this point, just because I think that the tight end class is noticeably better than the wide receiver class in terms of the role that Tetairoa would play. But again, you look at the head coach, right, which should be Kellen Moore. He loves tight ends. Tyler Warren is going to be fantastic. And, people are saying, oh, well, this is the FOMO draft for Brock Bowers. I get it. Luckily, we at least have guys who are not going to be extremely overdrafted for that reason. I have Tyler Warren at number 21 overall on my board, and I really, really like him. Really like him to the point where I'm very happy taking him at 9. But, this is not because you want your own it's not because you want your own Brock Bowers. We will not be seeing, most likely. Fingers crossed we could see a talent like that, but I don't think we're going to be seeing a talent like I keep seeing Tyler Warren and Freudian slip in there, but like Brock Bowers for a very, very long time. But Tyler Warren, I think, could step in, probably top 5, 10 tight end right off the bat. And in the offense that Kellen Moore should be implementing, I think that's a good idea. Will Campbell going at pick 10. I'm not going to say it's out of the realm of possibility. It's offensive line is perfectly fine. You guys did a very good job at, talking about Broderick Jones. I think that he has the capability when healthy to be a legitimate left tackle. You guys are saying, hey, don't trust the consistency. Don't trust the health either. And so this could be a guard to tackle role that I'm personally going to be perfectly fine with. I do think with the quantity of edge rushers here, granted with Dennis Allen now on the coaching squad, if you could end up waiting till round 2, there's a lot of guys, even round 3 for that matter, for the edge rushing position, a lot of guys that could end up fitting Dennis Allen's defense, which I really, really like. At number 11, you got the Niners going Kelvin Banks. I'm just not a big Kelvin Banks guy, but it is a very realistic move. Again, this is, for Chad Reuter, we're pretty on point. We have like one curveball, and the NFL draft loves to throw curveballs, and it wasn't an egregious one. The Cowboys going Tech at 12 is fantastic. I'm just so happy. I'm forgetting which mock it was. It might have been Cynthia Freeland's, which, again, I love Cynthia to death. It is what it is. People call me a simp, but, I think that for the majority of what she does a very good job. There were certain things like Jahdae Barron in the top 5 that, obviously I heavily disagree with, and we will heavily disagree with stuff on draft day. Not going to say that that was the best pick in the world, but, letting Tetairoa slip to 17 when the Cowboys definitely, I think, would prioritize him over a player like Gentia, which I believe was the pick in that draft. It's just good to see that Tetairoa will be able to, at least be a factor here. I don't think he could ever slip past 12. I think he's a perfect complement for the Cowboys, and I would love to see him on it. I just don't think he gets there. The Dolphins make a trade with the Houston Texans, who usually trade down, if I'm not mistaken. But, of course, the last time they traded up was for Will Anderson. But I might be speaking out my ass on the trade down comment. Regardless, Jalen Walker goes here at pick 13. He's a really intriguing linebacker. And of course, I didn't even read this. So Chad Reuter and I are on point here. But first, second, and third round for Miami's first and a fourth. I don't know if you need to send that. And I don't think Jalen Walker is that good of a player. And I really like Jalen Walker. That's a little bit extreme. That's a little extreme right there. I would not see the return on investment for Houston right there at all. You need offensive line help desperately, like desperately. Some defensive interior help, maybe a third safety. There's just so many things that you do need to address the offensive line, and sending 3 picks for a linebacker, I love the vision, not the cost. So I'd be a little bit worried about that. And for Miami, I don't really necessarily think that they're in that desperate need of picks. Jahdae Barron goes at 14 to the Colts. Again, another pick I'm going to disagree with, but you're going to be talking about, he's a slot to me. He's sub 6 foot. He's a zone corner. He's an off coverage. Like, that's what he's best for, and that's a beautiful thing. There is a legitimate role, and it's valuable in the NFL. But for the archetype of corner that the Colts have, it doesn't fit. It doesn't, unless you're using him as a safety. So I just don't really see him going to the Colts there. Falcons going Dalvin Ezrawaku at 15. Obviously, a lot of people are going to look at this as a reach. To me, based on my board, it's a reach. But you know what? Honestly, it's not egregious at all. He's somebody who brings he has that 2-point stance that Raheem Morris is going to love, where he can play with his hand in the dirt or in a 2-point. He has a lot of speed to power, but maybe he's not the most speed guy, but he's fluid as all get out. He has good arm length. He's a damn good player. Now, he didn't wow me when he was at SMU when I got to see him in person, but he was also dealing with an ankle injury. Saw him have it taped up, and he also had to leave the field a couple times for that. But really good player nonetheless. Obviously, I'd be focusing that on round 2 or via trade back if you are set on Ezrawaku, because this is just a really good edge class. But we did see what happens when, like with even Jalex Hunt. Jalex Hunt is a better athlete than Dalvin Ezrawaku, but like we're just talking about being able to use your power and your arm length to be able to push tackles back. Sometimes you don't even need to have the finesse that Ezrawaku has. But the Falcons get themselves a polished guy, which I think is, I do like Ebiketie. I do have a lot of faith for him. You guys know how much I love Braylon Trice. Obviously, him losing all that weight is what broke my heart, but it is what it is. Broncos trade up with the Cardinals to go Colston Loveland. I think the Broncos could address so many different needs with just as good, if not better, value by sticking and picking. Colston Loveland's a good tight end. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think that this needs to be traded up for. I don't know who would be the team threatening to go after Colston Loveland. I mean, maybe you could talk about the Seahawks. Obviously they're potentially going to be cutting George Fant. Not George Fant, it's Noah Fant. But anywho, but they're going to be cutting Fant. And so most likely for cap reasons. And so Colston Loveland would fit perfectly. Maybe that's why you'd do it. But a 3rd and a 6th, I mean, to get a 5th in return at least. I mean, it's not egregious, but again, for a team like the Broncos, where I would love Sean Payton to kind of manipulate and use that 3rd round pick to make a really big impact, whether that be a running back, whether that be a tight end as well, if one doesn't slip. Like, I just feel like you could really, the Broncos in this draft class are pretty damn set, and I'm excited to do my offseason breakdowns in terms of like post free agency, to be able to break down like, hey, this is the priority, this is the depth of the class. But we have 100 picks to get through. I still think it's a fine move. It's just, again, expensive trade up. Then we got the Bengals going Tyler Booker here. I personally think that Tyler Booker is one of the best players in the class. That's why I have my board below my face, so I don't have to say that every time I like a player. But the Bengals going Tyler Booker here doesn't feel super realistic, but I would fully support it if it did happen. I could not see them passing on Ben Morrison because his DC Al Golden's here. But if they do somehow pass on that and they go Tyler Booker here at 17, I am perfectly fine with that. You need offensive line help, especially at guard. And he is a really, really solid lineman, man. I mean, I watched him having the expectation of dropping him, and I ended up raising him higher, which is insane. Then we have the Seahawks going Derek Harmon at number 18 overall. Defensive interior is a position the Seahawks might be looking at. And I'm forgetting, but I think Jones might be on the cut candidacy based on his contract. So you guys might be looking for that 3rd defensive interior role with Byron Murphy there, as well as Leonard Williams. So, I wouldn't say that that's the pick I would go with. Obviously, that's why I make my own mock drafts. But if it does happen, he's young, he's very productive, and honestly, he has production both as a pass rusher as well as a run defender. So it wouldn't be egregious again. Buccaneers going Armand Membu at 19. I've seen a lot of people going after interior offensive line. That's intriguing. So they're going to put Membu at guard, because I saw I think it was a trade back, and then Gray Zabel. It might have been Lance Zierlein's mock draft, or it might have ended up being PFF's. One of the two, but one of the two I haven't posted on the show yet. But Membu could play guard in the short run and train up to be a successor at right tackle if Gadecki is going to be someone that you don't want to retain price-wise. But, I mean, I think Gadecki's done a solid job. So I don't know about that. But at number 20, you get the Cardinals trading back and getting Josh Simmons. I would love this to death. I know that, again, James Pierce Jr. is on the board. You guys see based on my board what I think of James Pierce. But offensive line coach for Ohio State with y'all. And you get a player who I consider top 5 pre-injury, I'm going to say that's a win. And you get a third-round pick, that's a win. Let's see how the rest of the draft turns out because we got 2 third-round picks now. Steelers going Quinshawn at 21. I think this is very on brand for the Steelers. I don't support it because I think a boundary corner is more of a need, and I would go all day after Ben Morrison. But, you know, I think in round 2, I would love Quinshawn Judkins. I just don't. I mean, apparently we're projecting Pittsburgh to take a QB in round 2. I'm hoping it's Will Howard so we can just stick the 2 dudes together. Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. But, you know, running back, corner, wide receiver, and quarterback. Those are the primary positions. And, of course, you can continue reinforcing the offensive line. People are trying to crap on the offensive line, forgetting that our first-round pick was out for the entire year. He should be coming back, hopefully healthy, and then being able to bolster the line and make it better. So I still don't think that you can ignore the line, but maybe on day 3 we can start addressing it a little bit more. Malachi Stark slips to the Chargers at 22. Sometimes going BPA is the right thing to do. If the Chargers are like, I think that Harbaugh would be perfectly happy taking best player available, and Malachi Starks with the Swiss Army knife skill set that he does have. I don't think that would be a bad move. It's a unique move, not a move, again, that I'd necessarily make, but I don't think it would be something that I would be like, that's a bad move, because good players fall in the draft, and there are going to be players at different positions. And again, I think safety might be the one where guys like fall a little bit more. But regardless, you know, you can end up still getting good value at other positions of need as well, as long as you continue getting great players. Green Bay Packers go Michael Williams at 23. They fired their defensive line coach because they're unhappy with the production of their line. I do think there's a chance that you guys do not end up going after edge rusher. However, you know, I think that Michael Williams here is perfect because of the untapped potential. And as he got healthier, he got better. It's the same phrase I'll always say. By the way, I should have said this at the start of the video. This is a Juju Smith-Schuster jersey. Not to rub it into Chiefs fans, but mainly because I'm wearing a tank top underneath this, and it's sick. I love USC jerseys. But regardless, you know, Michael Williams, great pickup there for the Packers. Again, you're basically taking the highest potential player, seeing if Jeff Hafley can work with them. The Bills trade up with the Vikings. I think, again, Vikings, great trade down candidate. Bills, great trade up candidate. I'd be curious to see how they would end up. So Bills send 30 and 2/4 to Minnesota. Okay. I mean, I would prefer to have like reshifted everything, but I'm not going to complain. It's like, okay, you send 2/4, you move up for Kenneth Grant. I think Kenneth Grant's a great fit. You know, you don't want to be able to have other teams that are probably trying to trade up for a potential talent like that. I've drafted him to them before. I'm fine with it. Dolphins somehow move back and still get Jahad Campbell. I mean, that would be a masterclass. So I would support Greer on that one. So I'm just leaving it as is. That's a solid trade back. I don't think the Texans. I mean, the Texans could have stuck and picked Jahad Campbell over Jalen Walker at that point, and had a second and third round pick. So I'm just gonna leave it there. You got the Rams going Luther Burden here at 26, especially with Cooper Kupp. He's probably gonna get cut. Like, that money is just, it's rough, man. It's rough, but we'll see what they can end up getting out of him. But Luther Burden definitely is a target for him now. At number 27, the Eagles go Emeka Egbuka. They trade up for him too. I just don't see the target share. You know, he actually does have a role on this offense. He's going to play the Jahan Dotson role, but Jahan has an extra year. Not saying Jahan is better than Emeka, but it doesn't make sense. The return on investment there just doesn't really make sense. And then you swap third round pick for a fourth rounder. I just don't see the value. That's a pick that I will say it's not a good pick. At 28, we got the Lions going Jonas Savania here. At guard, he did actually really well, but he did not do well at all as a tackle. Like, I'm just going to be honest, I would not draft him probably if I knew he would not be willing to play guard. But his guard tape is actually really solid. So I do like that quite a bit, but I don't know if it's going to be the pick I'd go at 28 for the Lions. Let's see what happens in rounds 2 and 3. You get the Commanders going JT here. It's a pick I've done before. Love the high floor, and honestly, Dan Quinn can make it work. Vikings via their trade back go Azareye'h Thomas. This is an A-plus move for me. Azareye'h is a big winner overall from this past season. First season starting, he was a guy who was a top 15 player for me. And via other dudes being even just awesomer, it's for lack of a better term, he's slipped to 19. But again, he hasn't slipped. It's just other players have just really wowed me through this process. You got Jackson Dart going to the Jets at 31. I mean, good job for the Chiefs trading out if this is going to be the demand. Just going to be honest. No. I mean, he's a fun playmaker, and I'd get the Jets that are going to be a little bit desperate, but I mean, they sent a 4th, 5th, and 6th round pick as well. That's an expensive price to pay to pick up Jackson Dart that I do not really have full faith in. Ravens, via that trade back, still get Josh Connolly. Incredible move. I mean, I ended up watching the rest of his tape, and I thought he did a pretty damn solid job outside of that one rep versus what's his name, Mike Green. So yeah, as much as I love you guys, we're going to just deal with the UI for rounds 2 and 3. It is what it is, but let's get on with it. Cleveland goes Quinn Ewers. Man, I really don't think the quarterbacks are going to be pushed up like this. That is intriguing. That is intriguing. I would not do that, but Cleveland Browns go after Quinn Ewers there, number 33 overall. I do not see that. Gray Zabel goes to the Giants at 34. You guys see where Gray Zabel has moved up to on my board. I think that, in all the drills of the Senior Bowl, he was the best player there, hands down. He was the best player at the Senior Bowl. There was nobody remotely close to his talent level. It was insane. This guy, I've not seen domination from a guard like that. I really think he is. If you take him in the middle of the first, I'm like, okay, not going to be shocked. So it is quite surprising. I did not expect that. I had Donovan Jackson above him. I also had, Tyler Booker above him. And it's just, this guy is different. I mean, and I don't like small school guys. I'm notoriously usually against the small school guys. And he surprised me. So I would be surprised if he ends up slipping to the second. Titans go Restrepo here at 35. I could totally see it fitting, especially with Cam Ward. It does fit the role in the offense that there is a vacancy there. So, I mean, it's a little high for me for Restrepo, but honestly, it's a good fit. It is a good fit. Again, I do like seeing him stay with his quarterback that he had a really solid bond with this year. Jaguars they're revamping their secondary here. Xavier Watts at 36. Not going to complain about that. Good ball hawk. I would say it's a little early for me, but still a damn good player. The Raiders get Matt Golden, which he's not just some deep threat, because I do think you guys already have that role kind of filled out. He is a very solid receiver, so I would say this is very good value for him. Patriots go Arianti Ursary here at 38. It's a pick that I've done as well. I think he's really surprised me more than pretty much. I feel like I'm on an Ursary fan club now for some reason. I'm the one who's kind of shouting out his praises, so it is certainly interesting. You got Mike Green here at 39. For the record, I will be doing positional rankings again, and it will be even more, and it will be post Senior Bowl, which Shamar Stewart and Mike Green both have jumped up noticeably. So I do want to let y'all know that. And it's not saying I was wrong. I think their tape during the regular season did not show the type of hype that they had. I think that people got justified with getting excited, and it's a beautiful thing. It's great to see these guys progress over the offseason. It's super key to tell. To see what happens. But if I'm going to be completely honest, I do think Shamar Stewart would be the likelier pick for the Bears, because Dennis Allen's the DC, and Shamar Stewart feels like a Saints pick, but it's a Saints pick because it's a Dennis Allen kind of player. But regardless, Mike Green's still a good fit there for Chicago. I don't think that Dennis Allen would be against it. I just think it would be more probable for Shamar. So technically, in my mind, I might switch those two. Donovan Jackson going to the Bears at 41. They went 2 guards. This is the reason why I don't really trust the Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks early, is because I would love Donovan Jackson here in the second, or trade up to the end of the first for Donovan Jackson and then just let him become the left tackle after a year, Braxton Jones being unreliable. That would be my vision. And then you could end up getting an edge, and then you could also end up getting a defensive interior, which I think would be really valuable. You got Nick Scorton falling to 42 with the Chiefs. Perfect Spags guy. I mean, obviously, you guys know what I think of Nick Scorton. He's number 24 on my board, and I love him to death. At 43, we got the Niners. I'll scroll down a little bit more because there's some new guys who have popped up here and there on my board, and they're continuing to move around. But Tatlake Williams at 43 is incredible value. Again, another guy that you can see directly in the middle of your screen at 22 on my board. So you guys know I'll like it at 43. Cowboys got 44. Omarion Hampton, literally a top 10 player for me. I love him to death. And the Cowboys sniping Tet and Omarion, absolute fireworks. 45, we got the Colts going Elijah Arroyo. Again, really solid pick. I hope that the health ends up checking out with him. You know, this is his first year actually getting like noticeable reps. Then you got the Falcons going Trey Amos. So, you know, it might be underwhelming. Oh, I already know my Cardinals fans are going to go ballistic in terms of a good way. But, you know, the Falcons walking out with Ezraku and Amos, I think that's actually not a horrible haul at all. You get two legitimate quality starters. Of course, again, James Pierce is technically my number 2 player, but because people were bitching at me enough, I ended up putting Abdul Carter's role-specific grade on the board. So technically my number 3 player slips to 47, and you guys got an extra, what was that, an extra 3rd and an extra 6th at the price of a 5th. Yeah. There's nothing I need to say about that. Y'all know that. I think it's a great pick. Dolphins getting a quality defensive interior here in Alfred Collins. He's right outside my top 100, but a damn good player nonetheless. Tez Johnson goes at 49 to the Bengals. I don't really see that being a real good return on investment, but, you know, Tez is still a very good player. Shamar James, I heard a lot of praises about him, but top 50, I think we all can agree that's a bit of a stretch. But I do like the idea of the Seahawks going after a versatile player there. I mean, if I were to sub in another linebacker, Carson Schwezinger would probably be it. You know, Zach Charbonnet, shout out Oaks Christian, former teammate, former friend, but you know, he actually has a really strong connection with Shea Pitts. So shout out to my boy Shea at UCLA. He's a coach there. So I think that, you know, they actually might have that connection to bring on Carson Schwezinger, and also the Seahawks ended up bringing on, you know, Colby Parkinson before. So if they're going to go after a linebacker, I think that would be the more likely option. Speaking of the man, shout out to another Oaks Christian Lion here, Carson Schwezinger, going at 51 to the Broncos. Could totally see it. He is a, you know, crazy athlete, but, you know, I would be surprised to see the Broncos passing on running back at this point because of the 3rd round pick that they lost. So it'd be curious to see how that goes. Jalen Milroe goes to the Steelers at 52. I just don't think Jalen's that good, but if we're talking about Dart late 1, Quinn Ewers early 2, or Milroe late 2, I'm going to be honest, I might think Milroe's the best value out of the bunch, especially because Dart was traded up for 2. So, you know, at least we're not the other 2 teams. At least I'm not Cleveland Browns right now. Jack Sawyer goes at 53 to the Buccaneers. Quality edge. I mean, you can't complain about that at all, and especially because they didn't go after edge in the first. Really good value there. Siobhan Ravel slipping to the 2nd round. I love seeing it because it's a solid draft, surprisingly, and, you know, ACL tear could probably put you below other players that you see that don't have that issue. Josh Farmer at 55. I'm not there for him in round 2 just yet. I love Josh Farmer. I love his family as well. Got to meet his brothers there in Mobile, but you know, I do think, you know, Josh ended up being one of those guys who showed crazy leg strength. He has all the tools in the toolkit. I do feel like this is almost Braden Fisk FOMO, but Josh Farmer going early day 2, or not early day 2, mid day 2 is not a bad thing at all. You know, he doesn't have an official grade for me just yet. It's being finalized as I'm going through all the guys who I really liked from the Senior Bowl. Josh Farmer was definitely one of them. I thought that he was underwhelming to the eyes, and then when you really sit down and like focus on him and not the whole entire event, you realize how much better he performed than, you know, what the initial reactions were. Then you got the Buffalo Bills going Princely Umanmielen. I honestly think Princely was extremely underwhelming there at the Senior Bowl, but good value nonetheless by the Bills. Jared Wilson goes at 57 to the Panthers. I'm going to be honest, I don't know how much the need of a center is for the Panthers, so let me know, Panthers fans. Of course, I do know Chad likes to throw his curveballs for the Panthers majority of the time. Nicky Manwara goes to the Dolphins at 58 via that trade back with the Texans. And so, you know, ridiculous value there and a great pickup. The Dolphins getting Campbell and Eamon Wari. Whew, that'd be great. Kennard to the Ravens just feels like a good fit. I just don't think that Kennard needs to be taken in the 2nd. Harrison to the Lions at 60 fits like hand in glove, very similar to Rakestraw. And it was so good to see him healthy because he was much lower on my board as a corner before that. And it was because of how he was playing when hurt. And it's just so good to see him rise back up. But very similar in overall skill set to Ennis Rakestraw Jr. But I don't know if they necessarily need to go after Harrison in the second. Again, I feel like the edge position needs to be addressed. You got Kobe Bryant here at 61 to the Commanders. I like Kobe. He is a top 100 player on my board, and he's fun. He's a chirpy little dude, but he plays much larger than his size. I just don't think that the Commanders need to take another pick on a thinner corner when there are some other guys that I personally like Darian Porter, who are in that 6'2 to 6'4 range and have really good athleticism overall. You got Jack Bech going to the Bills at 62, solid possession guy, but doesn't have necessarily athleticism to be able to maximize as a receiver on the Bills. I would say I want a separator for the Bills, and Jack Bech I think can serve a really good role on a team that's looking for somebody else, or looking for someone to be more of a possession style receiver, which I love Bech to be. You got Jaden Blue going to the Chiefs at 63. Jaden Blue is a good player, but man, his fumble rate's horrible. So I just cannot see him going this high. But he is a really fun player, even with a horrible fumbling grade. He ended up still being a top 15 running back for me, and he is awesome. Cam Williams goes at 64 to the Eagles as a guard tackle for the long run. You will bet on the tools eventually, so I'll be excited to see what the Eagles do. But of course, again, they trade up for Mecca Ibuka. I'm trying to say like, hey, there has to be another vision than wide receiver in the first for me to like that move. But somehow Ben Morrison slips to 65. I think we all know that's BS. Ben Morrison would have been selected by the Bengals in the first 2 rounds. He had a phenomenal year. I don't know what's up with why he's falling. I really don't. Maybe Chad Reuter just loves the Giants. I think NFL Network is in New York anyway, so maybe he's just pulling one for the Giants on this one. But, I mean, before injury, he was my number 4 player in the class, and he was most people's, top 10 player. He had a hip injury after half a year. I mean, we're talking about Siobhan Rivell as, this god-tier corner who was, consensus worse than Ben Morrison. He played more games than Siobhan Rivell, and he played it versus actual NFL talent and did well. Surprising to say the least. Giants get themselves a damn good one for obvious reasons. Chiefs going Anthony Belton would be ridiculous value. I don't know if he goes in. I think this would be more likely to swap with Cam Williams. I don't think Belton slips out of the second. I really don't. Landon Jackson goes to the Browns at 67. Just a high floor edge defender with some good quick moves. I just don't know how translatable he's going to be in the NFL. Darius Alexander is one of my favorite players. You can actually technically, can you see him? You can see him on my board right now. I'm not going to say the spot because I want you guys to take a peek at it, but he's somebody I very, very much like compared to the consensus, and he is awesome. And so 68 to the Raiders makes a lot of sense to me for the value. Isaiah Bond goes to the Patriots at 69. Again, just really good value. Really good value. And so you're betting on him being healthy. I really like people who were saying they didn't see it at all from Isaiah Bond. At the start of the year, this guy was hot shit. I'm just going to be honest. He was a guy who was getting his helmet ripped off while scoring a touchdown. People loved him. It is a little disingenuous, a lot of hindsight bias to try to act like we never liked Isaiah Bond. He's a really good player. I do not have him fully updated yet because wide receivers are the guys I'm going into and finalizing off before moving on. Mason Taylor goes to the Jaguars at 70. Yeah, I just don't really think they need to go after another tight end, but it's solid value. I'm not going to bitch. Trey Harris going at 71 to the Saints. If his medicals check out, which he couldn't even go to the Shrine Bowl because of it, then cool. I don't think he gets selected on day 2. I don't think he's selected on day 1 or day 2. Doesn't have necessarily the great athleticism from what I hear. And then also my eyes didn't see a crazy athlete. He's a fun player, but he definitely screams day 3 when combined with his overall health. Caleb Johnson at 72 to the Bears. Solid range for him to go, in my opinion. I think where I'd feel comfortable with him outside of where I know he should be going. But he's super young. He has a lot of carries, but also not a lot of tread loss, which is awesome because it was primarily this past year where you get to see it. And the Bears getting them, this would be perfect. I would personally love seeing Caleb Johnson with DeAndre Swift and whoever they could end up getting later on. Noel Williams, I do think it's possible he goes on day 2. He's a very athletic press corner who, he has the lockdown reps that is yes, you could be a superstar in the NFL. they're so inconsistent to where I am thinking if he goes to day 3, I understand why. But the ceiling there is ridiculous. Great athlete, high level wins. It's just the wins are too few and far between. Panthers fans are going to see an Oregon edge rusher in the 3rd round and are going to be scared because of Johnson. Don't. Jordan Burch is an absolute savage. I mean, this guy's one of my favorite players in the draft, like pound for pound. He didn't grade out like necessarily like it, but I do see that number 39 is technically not colored properly. Do not yell at me yet, because I'm still updating the board, and the amount of times I have to recolor shit, it gets on my nerves. But where's he at? Oh, maybe I did have him higher than I expected. 65. I think of him higher than 65. I'm just going to be honest. I think of him higher than 65. And to be fair, there are receivers in here, again, like Jalen Rolls, Ricky White. Like, these guys are going to be falling. These are, early season grades that are still being fully updated. But, I still think that I would want him in my top 40 based on how much I love this ceiling for Jordan Burch. You got the Niners going Kevin Winston. Great value against what the Niners have been doing. Cowboys sniping TJ Sanders. Again, a great value position of need. Patriots going Trey Henderson at 77. Say it with me. Great value. Honestly, a position of need. You got the Cardinals here at 78 with Savion Williams 6'5" after the catch threat. I'm not a big Savion guy, but again, compared to where people think he should go, it kind of makes sense. You imagine having the height on that squad, and then now you have your rack guy here and Savion Williams. I could see it happening. I really could. Friend of the show, Marcus Bowe, goes to the Commanders at 79. I could see him actually trying to polish up as a tackle, but developing and probably going to be sticking as a guard there for Washington as Cosme ends up healing up for the next year. Solid value. I like Marcus a lot. Obviously, I love him as a person. Someone who I thought might have been better value here would have been Wyatt Milam. But the Colts, even though they don't need this, going best player available, especially on the offensive line, it's never really a losing strategy. So I support it right there. Bengals going Harold Fannin. Obviously, he shouldn't be slipping this far, but he's a great player nonetheless. And, he is somebody who is a top 32 player on my board, where he's sitting at number 26. He's really good. Like, again, really good after the catch. Smooth route runner, aggressive blocker. Seahawks going Emory Jones is so on par with like what I expect of Seattle. I know, again, it's a McDonald era, but like I think Emory Jones is a better version of what they already have. Like, it's a better version of Bradford. Like, Emory Jones is a good player. He was supposed to be a 1st-round pick, so it was good value there. Steelers going Denzel Burke. We value athleticism too much to do this. It's good value for Burke because, again, another similar to Jones, former 1st-round quality player that just didn't have the year that they wanted to have. So, I mean, if I were selecting a player at this point, again, I would go after Porter all day, every day. I hope he gets selected in this, and I'm excited to give him some love there. Chandler Martin didn't surprise me in person. I do need to give him an all-22 grade linebacker. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit behind on. Deone Walker goes at 85 to the Cardinals. Good value, honestly. He needs to be like really retooled, but at 85, that's a perfect dart throw. Drew Kendall goes to the Chargers at 86. If I'm not mistaken, Drew Kendall was one of the best interior offensive linemen there at the Shrine Bowl. I don't think that it's worth it at 86, but I'm not going to complain if it does happen. Omar Norman Lott, you guys know exactly what I think of him. He's my number 30 player on my board. And so at number 87, I'm going to, of course, be in support. ETN goes to maybe be with his brother. I don't know if Travis is going to stay on the team, but Trevor Etienne at 88 is great value for Jacksonville. Then you got Dylan Gabriel going to, well, I guess not great value, but I just love what he could end up bringing to the squad that unfortunately Trevor has not. We got Dylan Gabriel going to the Dolphins. It makes sense. Very similar skill set to Tua with honestly some more athletic potential. Then you got Los Angeles Rams going Kyle McCord. I could see it happening. Like, again, this is kind of the litmus test. I do think Will Howard should be going before this, but, Kyle McCord picked up a lot of heat. Then you got the Ravens going Jalen Rolls. I could totally see it. Great after the catch threat. Smooth route runner. You say he was playing 80% at the Senior Bowl, and he still dominated. Could see him going in round 2. You got the Jets going Lathan Ransom. A really, solid player. Just health concerns could push him down this far, and the Jets would be great to pick him up there. 93, you got the Saints going Jacob Parrish. I love seeing the Jacob Parrish love. I mean, he's 5'10", but the dude's a baller. Like, he is a baller, and he's willing to stand up versus bigger receivers too. So, I'm all... God damn. He's good. I'm leaving that in the video. I don't care. because I sure as hell am not going to find out that. But I'm not going to be able to find the timestamp. But Jacob Parrish is awesome. He was one of my favorite players. And where is Parrish on my board? And again, do not get on my ass for number 39 being miscolored. That sounds like such a 2020 something thing to say. But I think he's over in the top 100. I thought he was. I might just be blind. I think I'm blind. He's somewhere in here. You guys can end up finding him for yourself. But a player that I really, really like. And it is kind of bugging the hell out of me that I did not see where Jacob Parrish was, because I might not have included him on the board. I might not have updated him. So, whoopsies. Regardless, he is a top 100 player on my board. Great pickup there. Jalen Rivers going at 94. I did not think he played that well at the Senior Bowl. It looked great in person, but when I started sitting down and watching every rep he was playing, a little bit less optimistic. Still optimistic compared to what he was coming in with. Like, he performed better than what we thought, but I do have my concerns there. Jordan Phillips goes at 95 to the Chiefs. Solid defensive interior, good nose tackle. I mean, young, explosive. I would be excited to see him. I just don't know about a third-round pick. And you got Barrett Carter to the Ravens, continue the Clemson linebacker train. Solid value there. Don't know why. I think Barrett should have tried to redshirt and then try to do one more year. But regardless, the Vikings get their home run hitter here in Dylan Sampson. Solid value. The Dolphins get Jalen Lane, who's a pretty damn small, if I'm not mistaken, at 5'9". Don't really think he offers much to the offense, but if Tyreek Hill does try to go and bounce out, maybe he could carve a role for himself. My man, Jalen Smith, going 99 to the Niners. I mean, I graded him today. You guys know, if you guys follow me over on Twitter, how much I loved him in person. I did not have a grade on him before. We actually got in contact, which hopefully we can get him on the show, but I'll send a text his way. We'll see what's up. But he is awesome. He was fun to talk to, somebody who I have a lot of respect for. He was awesome. And then on tape, he was awesome. And my boy James Foster likes him in press, man, as well as zone coverage. And I'm like, you know what? Those are two that I personally think are great for the Steelers. And then he was basically talking about how in quarters and in off coverage, it was a little bit more room to work, to say the least. And from my experience at the Senior Bowl, watching Tez kind of blow past him in off man or in catch man, I believe, I can concur with that. But I think that if you use him properly, like, he is Jair Alexander-esque. Needs to add a little bit more weight before you can get there, but he is very similar in terms of stature. But great pickup there for the Niners. Rams go Charles Grant at 100, and Charles Grant's a very solid player. He needs a lot of development. So that's going to be like a 4-year project, but it could end up paying off. And then we get the Lions ending this off with Josiah Stewart, projected compensatory selection for Aaron Glenn, which I think is very popular, or very possible. And Josiah Stewart would be an excellent pickup. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. See you on the far side. Peace.